Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Graham from the School of Teacher Education at National Taiwan Normal University. Welcome to my office hours. Recently, I was featured on the Taiwan Plus show Connected with Divya Gopalan. If you haven't seen it, you can find the episode on YouTube. During that interview, Divya, the show's host, shared a recent statement from the Ministry of Education on the future of bilingual education. According to the statement, going forward, the Ministry of Education will be approaching bilingual education from a non-compulsory position, meaning that bilingual education will be promoted in primary and secondary schools that are willing and ready to implement such programs. The statement further emphasized that teachers should employ a bilingual approach in Mandarin and in English that is adapted to the language abilities and comprehension levels of students in the class. Finally, the Ministry of Education made the point to say that this should not involve exclusively teaching in English or excessively emphasizing the proportion of English integration. I unequivocally support everything in this statement. I believe bilingual education in Taiwan should be implemented only in schools that are both prepared for it and in places where they welcome it. It should not be forced upon teachers and students who are not ready and not willing. I also, like the Ministry of Education, advocate for a bilingual, not an English-only approach to bilingual education in primary and secondary schools. And I believe that the bilingual arrangement adopted by the schools will and should look differently across classrooms. When you contrast this statement from the Ministry of Education with the way media, politicians, and special interest groups have been talking about bilingual education recently, you might feel that this is a change in direction, but it's not. This position, a non-compulsory bilingual approach, has been the policy for years. But what people are often led to believe is that this policy is about changing all schools across Taiwan to bilingual ones and making subject classes English only. And that's simply false. But unfortunately, these falsehoods have been translated into reality, particularly those related to the language of instruction. Principals, teachers, and even scholars who have not seen this messaging from the Ministry of Education may be promoting the idea of all English teaching as it is so often positioned in the media. But I argue that this English-dominant approach is the wrong one for Taiwanese primary and secondary schools. And there are real consequences that result from these misunderstandings. To understand why I feel this way, why I feel more English isn't better in these non-language classes, you first have to think about this from the perspective that knowledge and language are essentially the same thing. We as human beings use language to understand and express our knowledge about things. From this perspective, every class we take, whether it's a chemistry class or a math class or a social studies class, at its core, those classes are all language classes where language is used to learn and comprehend the content. So when students are learning a subject in Mandarin, they're actually developing their Mandarin language abilities. And the teachers of that class are teaching Mandarin, although they may not be completely aware that that's what they are doing. The risk of taking an English-dominant approach in a bilingual class is that students may not develop their ability to think and express ideas in that domain through Mandarin. Sure, they will still be able to speak Mandarin in their daily life at home with mom and dad and with their friends out in the community, but they won't have the experience of using that language in, for example, the social studies domain. So it's for this reason, it is absolutely critical that Mandarin remain the primary language of instruction in primary and secondary subject classrooms in Taiwan. Yet at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that English plays a very important role in our globalized world. So it can be beneficial for us to think about putting English as an additional language in the Taiwanese bilingual classroom. But at select times, not all the time. This will help set the stage for these students to use English in various domains in the future, whether that be in a Taiwanese university, such as NTNU, where some of their future classes will be conducted using English medium instruction exclusively, or in their professional life, for times when they may need to use English for their job. But of course, along those same lines, we cannot forget that these same students will take university classes through Mandarin, and many of their professional tasks will remain in Mandarin as well. So we can't just develop one language in our schooling system. We have to strategically develop both. This brings me to the main point of this episode. We have to change the way we publicly discuss bilingual education in Taiwan. Media, politicians, professors, advocacy groups, we have to stop using phrases that suggest we are trying to implement all English instruction or incorrectly refer to bilingual education as simply English teaching in subjects without mentioning Mandarin's continuing role. When we talk about bilingual, we have to say bilingual. Failure to change the manner in which we speak about bilingual education, frankly, will not benefit anyone. It will only serve to continue the confusion and further the promotion of ineffective bilingual education practices. Because whether you like it or not, bilingual education probably isn't going away in Taiwan. It will be practiced in some, but not all Taiwanese schools for the foreseeable future. So it's in the best interest of us as a society that we say the right things about Taiwanese bilingual education to promote its success, not to sow confusion and misunderstanding.